If you've been a part of the Clayton family for a while now, I'm sure you've heard us talk a lot about our vision to build disciples who represent Jesus to everyone, everywhere, with everything. Discipleship is such a loaded word, and everyone seems to have a different understanding of what it looks like to build a disciple. But here at Clayton, we're big believers in discipleship that happens in our day-to-day. This is why we've developed a tool that can help you process and respond to the things that God is doing and help you see the change and transformation that He wants to bring in your life. It's in our everyday moments that God tries to capture our attention so that He can build on our character and shape us to become more and more like Jesus. He can do this when we place Jesus as King over different areas of our lives so that He can truly rule our hearts and our motives. When we experience patterns, disproportionate reactions, and emotions in response to people or situations we find ourselves in, it often reveals two things. Firstly, something other than Jesus is ruling our hearts. This could look like greed, approval from others, unhealthy habits, needing control, or even a need for security. Ultimately, it's not Jesus. Secondly, our understanding of God has been distorted somewhere along the way. While we often think of sin as breaking rules, sin is fundamentally more about our hearts and our desires being misaligned with God's desires, or having a distorted view of who God is and how we relate to Him. In Romans 1, Paul talks about God's wrath against sinful humanity, and he says the reason for this is because we've exchanged the truth about God for a lie. Each of us have reduced God to a lesser being in some shape or form, and the outcome of this is that the brokenness we see and experience in our lives. For example, disobedience to our parents or a tendency to gossip. We have guilt issues because we don't fully understand God's grace, control issues because we forget God's sovereignty, anger because we've placed limits on God's mercy, pride when we haven't fully grasped God's greatness, trust because we don't appreciate God's goodness. Discipleship is an exciting and confronting journey of God showing us that He is so much greater than we think He is. He graciously helps us to discover the areas we're not quite getting right, and He helps us get back on the path that He wants us to be on. As we have a clearer view and trust in God, it changes the way we see things. Our priorities shift, the way we do things and how we relate to others shift. Placing Jesus as King over different areas of our lives isn't as simple as just saying God is in control. It requires a process of reflection, self-awareness, and heart change. And even though we've created this tool to help you do this, you have to be willing and want to change. When you catch yourself getting defensive about something a friend pointed out, or starting to notice unhealthy patterns and habits, you're faced with a choice. Do you let this moment pass? Or do you take the time to pause and allow the Holy Spirit to take you through this process so you can see what's really at the root of it all? Make it a habit to use this tool as you live life. If it's helpful, use it regularly during your quiet time with God. Note down the everyday moments that catch your attention and ask the Holy Spirit to search your heart. Pause to actively hear and obey His word. If you're finding it hard to use this tool on your own, get a friend, a life group leader, or a mentor to go through it with you. Get them to ask you honest questions and help you process what the Holy Spirit might be saying. None of us are perfect, but as we allow Jesus to rule, He will change our lives. And as we allow Jesus to rule, He will use our lives to build disciples who represent Jesus to everyone, everywhere, with their everything.